Commissioner Darren Andavino.
Here.
Commissioner King Gaspar.
Here. Will everyone please stand as they're able for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our first working session of doing the evenings. And whenever we do city council meetings, whether it be working or regular, they will be here and they will be at this time, normally on Thursdays. We'll start trying to get to a more regular schedule of work meetings and the regular meetings as we get through some of the time-sensitive issues that we've had here in the last month or so. We'll put that on the agenda item and describe the schedule at the next city council meeting, which is next Thursday, right here at this time. Okay, let's move to, one announcement here. I have had some calls because MoDOT did a roundabout meeting. It's about a series of roundabouts starting here at Highway, out by the airport, that intersection, and there's 6 roundabouts going west over to the state line.
Actually, it's just 2.
No.
It's just 2. Yeah, it's one by the airport at 97, and another one there.
And then Shakes and 60 over by the ocean.
Yeah, here's what, some people did not get to meet that meeting because, and very no offense, it's the wrong date was put in the paper. So people approached me on that. MoDOT was there in full force, and then rather than have them redo that, you still have an opportunity to submit your questions to MoDOT until I think July 17th. Can we put that link on the website? And okay, it's all up. It's all there. So you still have your opportunity. It's just MoDOT is going different places. I think Neosho and those places for meetings. So to try to bring them back for a few years, probably a reason. All right, let's go ahead and start with regular business.
All right, the first item of regular business is item A, discussion regarding the staff's potential housing improvement project. I did just want to mention that we did reach out, formally request an election for the petition to both county clerks, and they did unfortunately get back to us and just said it was going to have to be at the November election, so that will be at the November general election, the presidential election, when that will be on the ballot, but it will certainly be on the ballot. We just want to make sure everyone is aware of that, so please do mark the calendars to vote for that when you're also voting for the president and other people on the ballot.
So everyone understands petition we talked about the last city council meeting will be on the ballot. It will be on the November ballot. Next item.
All right, next item on the agenda is the release of the surveys. This is an agenda item related to the community survey that was put out last fall, and that's been the topic of conversation here for the past few months. I did ask Mike Gervais to put together some snippets as we discussed at our last work session. You'll see those in front of you. They're also in a document that I sent out a little bit earlier today. So,
What time did you send them out?
it was this afternoon that I sent those out. So
I hadn't seen these before. That's why.
right. So, but wanted to just give you guys an opportunity to look at that and have a chance to review. This is kind of what we're looking at in terms of at least recommendation from staff on if we release information from those surveys. I think we could do so with giving some snapshots of some data about, hey, this many respondents or this percentage of respondents felt this way.
How many slides do you have?
I believe there's 4, and half of them take that approach, and the other, on whatever topic it is also might list some of the comments that were made. So I think that gives the community an opportunity to look at. This is kind of the gist of what some small snapshot of what that survey came out with as far as data. I know there's been some conversation in the past about how we release that data. So this is just an attempt to say, all right, this is some of the information in a way that we might release, say, on Facebook, on social media. So just, my thought was maybe once a week, that we release another category of information or something to try and provide information to the public about, hey, we listened, this is kind of what we heard from the community at large regarding these various topics. So certainly just a conversational topic today. Don't need any decisions by any means, but that's just, given that this has been a conversation.
So our plan is to do snippets like this?
That would be what I would recommend if we were going to release the data, that we do so in a fashion similar to this, because there's.
Well, I took that survey, and there's a lot of stuff on here. When I'm seeing, I don't see anything on public safety. I don't see anything on housing. Housing was a big issue. A lot of questions asked on that. And after 7 months of hard work, this is what we come up with. I think it's pretty disappointing.
Okay, well, again, this is an example of the data that we might be able to release. This is not the aggregate, but this is just an example.
And I'd like to comment on this. This is just a sampling. I'm on the record of saying that I have huge concerns over this data. I did not take the survey because when I was looking at the survey, the design of the survey was not ever addressed with the previous council or with the previous city administrators, to my knowledge. Is that correct?
I did have a chance to review the survey, but it was something that had been sent out to department heads and myself, and so we looked at, hey, what comments do we try and solicit, but it was not provided to the city council.
Okay. So once I was able to, I'm sorry.
We released this.
I'm sorry. So when I was able to get the raw data and actually see the complete set of data, I can't glean a whole lot of correlated data out of it. Yes, there was a huge amount of data points in there. That's something that I do for a living. The data points I found many of them were extraneous and not really relevant to the city conducting business. So one point I want to make is, for example, the respondents, they were able to fill in the zip code of their residency. There were 15 zip codes provided. 14 of them are outside of Monett. And I can provide what those city names are. So if we're looking for responses from our community and we're getting responses from outside of our community, when I see these percentages, I take exception to some of them because I don't know the validity of this data. I don't know who the respondent is. So this is just a work session. This is just a discussion. And I'm not ready to have anything released to the public yet. I know there's people here that are seeing this information now, but I'm not comfortable with releasing this information out to the public yet.
So why did we do the survey?
There was a request from the previous council to have a survey done to obtain certain information, but the amount of information that was contained within the survey, I certainly would have never approved of. Because we were asking demographic type information, we were asking ranges of salary in a household, we were asking how many children are in a household. This is all demographic information we can get from the Census Bureau. I have statistics in this survey data that in some cases it took a couple of hours for a respondent to complete the survey.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It was much too large, way too long. And again, I can't have any confidence in the data that we have back. So I want to have more time to be able to look over this data. If we're going to use this data, I want to be able to analyze it and scrutinize it much more than we have.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the author of the survey who created this survey, and we're going to have a breakdown, because I understand this is going from an Excel spreadsheet to Word. And so it should take a week or two. We can get that done, and I'll present it to the council, and maybe that will inform us of how we need to go about it, with releasing the survey results.
And as another example, I also put this data through ChatGPT, the AI tool, and it came back with a response that it could not provide an analysis on it. And that's because
Okay, well, we'll see here. We'll get the data broken down, and we'll take a look at it. let us do that, and I'll try to have something for the city council meeting. Probably won't be done then. I don't like this method right here. This is anecdotal, and I think it would be misleading.
I think it's more of just an example. That's the way I took it.
Okay. The other thing is I don't appreciate, I'm director of public relations, and I have not seen these slides yet. What keeps that from happening?
I apologize for that. That was me when I posted the agenda yesterday. I hadn't realized that this had gotten added. I didn't have all the slides prepared. I'd hoped to have 8 or 10 ready. But I completed this work this morning. I got it done as soon as I could. That was an oversight on my part.
Yeah, for several months, a little disappointing. Okay. Yeah, any discussion on
How accurate would you say the numbers, I'm sorry, how accurate would you say the numbers that we're looking at on it are for like restaurants and just some of the slides that you're presenting today? As far as the accuracy of the percentage numbers, are you high and low, plus or minus 3, like
So that's-
usual surveys are?
No, I'm gonna say that the results are accurate based on the data that Mike was able to work with. But this is my point. A survey conducted by the city government, what do we do? What can we do to cause a restaurant to be built in Monett? Right? That's a private entity. That's an investor that is going to, open up a new business. Sure, we could make it easier and maybe more incentives for people to buy a building and maybe upgrade a building or whatever the case may be, and how it relates to city code and such. But some of the responses in there were saying, it would be nice to have, an Applebee's, which has been talked about for over 30 years that I've been in Monett. And, I just don't know what we as a city council would do with that kind of information. That is not a question I would expect to have on a survey coming from the city of Monett. But to answer your question, the results that Mike has of these slides are accurate based on the data that's contained in those files.
And as far as receiving the data lakes, I know Mike has been working on it, but this agenda item was just added yesterday at your request, so that's another reason why we unfortunately weren't able to get it out until today.
And it hasn't been worked on. I mean, we were honestly, even with the previous council, we did not work on this data. And I'll take the blame for that if we want to call it that. Is that when I first saw the data, I didn't find any usefulness in it, so I didn't press it.
Okay, next item.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the impact of the budget for unexpected expenses. To date, we have identified or approved, the council has approved, or is looking to approve a few significant purchases, and you have requested that I look at potential offsets to address adding those items to the budget. For instance, a $254,000 digger truck for the electric department that we went ahead and decided to buy early. We're planning on buying that here in a couple of years, but had an opportunity to get that truck at a substantial cost savings for about 2/3 of the price.
What's the potential cost savings there?
We're looking at $100,000 to $140,000 was the expectation that we'd be able to save by going ahead and purchasing this early, because they had a customer order a significant number of these, and then ended up canceling the order, so they wanted to go ahead and sell these at a price to get rid of these, so we were able to get a significant discount. So council authorized moving forward with that, as well as we're looking at.
This is for replacing utility poles, is that correct?
Among other things, yes.
Okay.
Other items are the comprehensive plan that has been discussed as far as what we're looking at potentially doing. I think the council desires to move forward with going ahead with a comprehensive plan that is not currently in the budget. I'm estimating somewhere around $50,000 to spend on that. Price could come in anywhere from 25 to 80-ish thousand, but I think we could probably plan on about 50,000 as a good guess. 60,000 potentially for the compensation study, as well as 40,000 for the storm sewer repair replacement that everyone's aware of there on First Street, that we just had that collapse with the concrete truck. we're going to go ahead and make a minor repair that's Director Dunn and his crew, Public Works crew, just was able to tackle that here in the past couple weeks. But after chip and seal is done through this month, we're going to go back and replace the rest of that section of storm sewer because it's in very poor condition, and it's only a matter of time before it collapses. So before we have another incident like we had here a few weeks back, we want to go ahead and get that addressed now that we know it's an issue. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with replacing that additional approximately, I believe, 170 feet of pipe, storm sewer underneath First Street there.
So we're looking about 40,000, COG 50,000, blight survey for the tip 25.
Blight survey is 15.
That's 15, okay. Berry County 911 services, 46,000.
Right.
Okay, and the wage surveys, correct, 50 to 60,000.
Correct.
And the utility truck, what's that about, 400,000, 420,000?
The digger derrick I was referencing?
No, all of those together.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd say a little bit over that. But yeah.
Okay. Do we have any planned offsets, or do you see opportunities to offset that cost?
Yes. So some potential offsets we could have would be to delay hiring a city engineer. We have 70,000 in the budget for a city engineer position. We could delay that for the entire year or part of the year. We haven't moved forward with advertising for that yet. So that's one that we could continue to hold off on. Delay hiring a fourth person out at the airport. That's about 30,000 that we could save there. Defer demolitions. We have 40,000 budget for demolitions of dilapidated properties. Defer that. We could delay the Lowe's Lane project. That would save us about $650,000. We could reduce the extra transfer from the electric.
With $650,000?
Correct.
It's all infrastructure.
Correct. I would not recommend that we do that, but it is an option. We could reduce the extra transfer from the electric fund to the general fund by up to $800,000. And we could delay or cancel the Central Avenue project at a potential cost savings of $2 million, according to what's budgeted. So those would be some items that we could look at to try and defray some costs.
Would we be able to utilize those funds, the funds that are allocated for Central Avenue? That's coming from the transportation tax, correct?
Correct, but if you're looking at pure cash flow that the city, if we wanted to say, hey, we're going to spend an extra $500,000, so we want to make sure we have that $500,000 made up for in the bank, we could defer some of those projects. Even though from a fund perspective, they're not going to be allocated in the same place, from a bank account perspective, we would have the resources available.
The digger derrick truck, is that an actual FY25 expense or is that a PERC expense?
So the
Delivery would be when? I'm sorry, interrupting.
the digger derrick that we just went ahead and decided to move forward with, we've already got it.
Oh, we did?
Yes.
Okay, we forgive. Okay.
And actually, I think was here yesterday.
Okay.
Yes.
That was a good, quick turnaround on that one.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting it, so obviously my question.
Right, we've got another one that we, I think, ordered here last year,
No, it's been longer than that.
Yeah.
2 years ago, that we're still waiting on.
And again, my question.
Right. So we were lucky to have an opportunity here to buy this truck at a substantial discount and already be able to put it into service.
And you come up with your prioritized list of offsets, so we can send an email so we can at least take a look at those priorities.
Yeah.
Based on your recommendation.
And Chris, I am looking at some financing options for that truck as well that would offset some of it for this year's budget.
So about half of that, a little bit over half of that cost, we are looking at financing, so that way it won't necessarily need an offset this year. If you're looking at cash flow concerns.
Yeah, if we're gonna do it over 4 years, I mean, just put that on there. What I'm worried about is, what are we gonna spend, not worried about, what are we gonna spend this year? And your prioritized list.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, I think we can do that in email, and we can discuss that at the next council meeting next Thursday.
And we have ample reserve as well.
Right. Absolutely. The city has over $27 million in reserve, so I'm not concerned about our reserves at this point. The only fund that concerns me with reserves is the electric utility. And so that is a situation that we need to be mindful of when we talk about the digger derrick. But beyond that, the city has ample reserves.
Yeah, if you put that email out, we can talk about it either via email or just a list to inform all of us. What you're gonna do with the budget.
Okay, next item on the agenda is item D, the discussion regarding the construction of a dog park.
If you don't mind, I'd like to take that. I have a lot of history with this. Goes back a number of years. So for those of you in attendance, thanks again for coming, but I'm going to kind of tell a little story. So the dog park came about through the Monett Main Street organization. The Monett Main Street organization is charged with trying to improve the downtown district. This organization was able to obtain a significant amount of money donated from people who were interested in a dog park being placed downtown. The location that was originally selected was directly across the street from the Jerry Hall Pavilion. Unfortunately, that piece of land was paid for by the federal government to the city through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Authority. FEMA would not allow us to build a single thing on that piece of land. It has to be grass and remain grass. As a side note, I would love for that to be a parking lot for the pavilion area, just my 2 cents. But it's been a number of years since the Monett Main Street has started out with this project, and there's been no movement. There's been attempts to find additional locations for it, trying to keep it within the downtown district, which is great, and that's what those donors donated their dollars for. Unfortunately, there's just not very many viable locations. One of them being, I think it was called the old Olympia Foundry, that's way down by Sherwin-Williams, right? It's right along Kelly Creek, and it's just off the downtown district, but that's still an option. More recently, there's been a donor that actually clawed back some of their money, or all of their money actually, so the amount of money that the Monett Main Street has is slightly lower than original. But then a private investor purchased the former Monett Times building, and there was a proposal put together so that a dog park would be located at that location, but it wouldn't be the same dog park configuration that was going to be at the FEMA land site. It was going to be a much larger venture. It was going to be indoor, right? It's going to be boarding, it's going to be veterinarian, retail shop, and all that. And by the folks who designed the building and the business plan and the owner of the building, I mean, by their estimation, I think there was in excess of $1 million, $1.5 million, maybe $2 million. So a very large venture, but again, a private venture. And on the screen, you see the location that we're talking about. And what's in the circle is a parking lot. It's a city parking lot that was donated by the Belois family many years ago. I don't even remember how many years ago. But that was donated to the city with one stipulation, that it be a parking lot and remain a parking lot forevermore. The city has been trying to find the deeds to that property so that we can just donate that to that downtown dog park project. Fast forward now 3 years, I'll say 3 years to the present. The last council put forth the park tax item on the ballot, and voters, hopefully many, if not all of you here, voted in favor of that. The park tax, one of the things that was promised to be delivered with the park tax is a dog park at the South Park location, located where the former in-ground municipal pool was located. It's close to parking, it's close to the playground, it's close to the tennis and pickleball courts. In my opinion, it's a fantastic location. So last year, with the passage of the tax, there was money budgeted in the current fiscal year, 25, to construct the dog park at the South Park location using the same design that was going to be used on the FEMA site. At the same time, those folks, and what's on the screen now is that retail venture that I was talking about, that's a private entity, and I kind of mentioned this last week at our last work session. This is a private venture. It can go forth. This is not anything that the city should be considering. We should not even be discussing this other than the donation of the parking lot for that location. So here's the old Monett Times, and this is the proposal that was provided to us. But this is the proposal at the old Monett Times building. You know, I'll just say, full disclosure, full transparency, the owner of the building was a campaign finance manager for the mayor, and the person who designed the business plan and layout was the campaign manager for the mayor. I'm hoping that this wasn't on the agenda because of that, because it does not. It is not affecting the city business whatsoever. My promise to the city through the park tax was to put a dog park in the South Park location because the community wants a dog park. Just plain and simple. And this venture, the downtown dog and Aristocrattery, can exist, and I would love for it to exist because it looks fantastic. But I don't think it's anything that the city should be considering whatsoever.
Well, I think the reason we're here is there's confusion about what are we gonna do with the dog park. There's been talk of it downtown for a long time. The Main Street has gone that direction. And what is the obstacles in the way for us as a city to support Main Street or Main Street themselves to build a dog park downtown? I'm hearing deed. We can't find a deed.
So we were able to obtain the information from a title search on the deed that there is a deed restriction that, as Mr. Gaspar said, there's a deed restriction on it. We were able to confirm that. So now we need to.
What's the restriction?
The restriction is that it must remain a parking lot for.
Has anyone contacted the Gilroy there?
At the last department head meeting, you said you were going to do that, sir. And so.
I did talk with them. No one at the city has talked to them yet.
Right.
Okay, and they're amenable to doing that, so I think we could probably remove that as an obstacle. So what's the next obstacle to keep us from building a dog park downtown? Now, the dog park out in the city park, I agree with that. That's probably something we ought to do, but I think it's matters of priorities. What do we do first? Because this is gonna be a private entity that does this. Is there's gonna be a city effort out in the South Park?
That's correct.
If we were.
So there's no donations, it's just we're gonna put it in our budget and do that.
There was one industry in the city that has donated, not that haven't donated yet, but they have.
Has the city solicited donations for the South Park?
I have.
Okay. Can someone from Monett Main Street give me kind of a history of this downtown, this category here, because this seems like a pretty mature plan here. So I want to hear from you. Go ahead, please.
Hi, so the evolution of this project.
So you just turn there's a button that says push.
Oh, excuse me.
Please identify yourself.
Oh, Serena Anderson, consultant. Thank you. The evolution of this project was because in my interaction with Monett Main Street a year ago, there were all the problems that Ken Gaspar has mentioned here. There was an issue where the building was purchased for this project. The parking lot had collapsed and the city didn't want to pay the money to fix the parking lot and suggested that
Not initially, that's true.
And so it was suggested that the parking lot be donated to be used by the person developing the building at their cost so it was a sense of potential mutual benefit that for that purpose. One thing I do want to clear up, this is not a private entity other than the sense that we're going to raise the money from a private space. This will be either under the Monett Main Street Charter or it will become its own 501c3. Within the project, there are multiple areas of things where funds are generated because the intent at this point was to take a dog park and turn it into something that could also be an anchor for downtown, something that would bring a lot of interest and bring people in. And so the idea was to have this center create energy downtown, but also raise money for the mission of what the downtown dog and Aristocrattery would be. One of the primary missions was to support the Monett Dog Pound, who during my engagement with the city, I learned has a very limited budget. So our goals initially were to raise enough money to help supply the city with more staff members to help with the animal pound. It was to create a cattery because we have no any kind of cat remediation going on in Monett. So it's the ability to create a space where animals can be adopted from. There can be a lot of things going on in that way. So it is not a private venture. It is being privately managed. One of the concerns that Monett Main Street has is not with the city putting in a dog park at South Park. I love that idea. I love it. But here's the problem. The problem is that most of the delays that have occurred on this project, as Mr. Gaspar said for 3 years, belong really to the city and in the negotiation of whether the land that was suggested originally, they should have known that right off. That shouldn't have been something that put us into a time suck for 3 years. That should have been something that was pretty obvious, a FEMA buyout. Even acquiring the deed is something that the city was supposedly working on all this time. So Monett Main Street doesn't own the delays in this project, even though they've borne the frustration of the donors. The problem we have with the timing of the dog park for downtown, first of all, I'd be really curious to see who the donor is, whether or not it's the donor that pulled out of the dog park downtown and then repositioned money, because I overheard a conversation making a recommendation for that. So I'd be curious whether that's what happened or not. But my point is to say that if the city starts to build a dog park right now, what it does is it creates unfair competition between the city and the Monett Main Street, who is going to be soliciting funds and things to build this project and do this great work. So that's the concern. Give us a year or two. We've had all these delays for 3 years. Now we know we can get the parking lot and we can go forth and do this thing. Give us a year or two to figure it out before you undercut us and compete against the market with other donors.
So I did not know this was going to be a question and answer session, so I'll entertain this. This is good. A few points I heard, that it's not a private venture. It absolutely is. It's not a municipal venture. The city of Monett will not own this property.
It's not a for-profit event.
Excuse me. I let you speak. So it's not a municipal venture. So it's private. You stated that the city should have known about all the conditions. We knew about the FEMA and the SEMA restrictions. At the behest of somebody from the Monett Main Street Board, FEMA and SEMA were both consulted to ask, could there be any leniency given to that restriction? The answer took a while, came back, no. We also went around, because I'm also a member of the Monett Main Street Board, for full disclosure, we also went around the table to find out other locations, those others that I mentioned that were further down the street. The Monett Main Street Board, I'm not going to blame the Monett Main Street Board. I'm also definitely not going to blame the city of Monett, because this is not a city of Monett project. The parking lot in question did collapse. The city council at the time did not want to spend the money to fix it because it was fairly exorbitant. Plus there were other conditions with that parking lot that were unknown. It was going to take some investigation. There was also a potential insurance issue that was going on there. So nothing happens quickly, unfortunately. The other thing was the donor identification. I'm never going to identify who the donor is unless they give you the permission to identify, but they've never even donated any money yet. It was just a promise. It was a conversation. The unfair competition, completely disagree. The city of Monett picks up solid waste. There are other companies around the area that also pick up solid waste. The city of Monett does not have a monopoly on solid waste, trash. There are other companies that are able to operate. The city of Monett has a park. We have playgrounds in the park. We have tennis courts, pickleball, walking trails, biking trails. Let's add a dog park. I don't see it competing in any way, shape, or form because it is going to be a piece of grass. It is not going to be a facility like this, which is fantastic. If it's successful, fantastic, because it makes our downtown much better and it brings people into the downtown arena. So I appreciate your words. I disagree with many of them, but I wish you all very much success on this because I would love for this to happen downtown
but I still want the dog park in the South Park.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there's any question that we want both. But are there any more obstacles so the 501c3 Main Street can start on this project?
That doesn't pertain to us. It doesn't pertain to us. They can operate.
We've had delays here identified by the city. We've talked about, oh, we can't find the deed, and we're talking about, we're not allowed to do anything with the park.
That
But I don't think that's true.
It was true. It is true. There's a deed restriction saying that it must be a parking lot.
We're not talking FEMA, we're talking about this one right
I
here.
did too.
Okay,
The FEMA land is the land across the street from the pavilion.
okay, so FEMA doesn't really have anything to do with it.
That's out.
Okay.
That's out. So the parking lot in question was owned by the Deloitte family, donated to the city with a restriction that it cannot be
Okay,
used
we know
for
that's
anything
not, we
other.
know that's not gonna be an issue.
Okay, that's fine. That's not moving forward.
So the Main Street can move forward with this dog park.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because we now have the deed, we can, I don't know the process, so forgive me, but it's a process to have that restriction lifted.
So we need to have that restriction lifted. I don't know if we just need something in writing from the Gilroy's family. I'll talk to the attorney. But I think the biggest thing at that point then just becomes that the city will need to deed over that land to Monett Main Street, if the city council so
All
desires.
right, well, let's assume that it's gonna be a week before, how long do you think that process is gonna take? Because the family's amenable to it.
And so,
We were gonna get the deed next month, that's 14 months.
as long as we can,
Yeah.
as long as we can get that done, I will reach out tomorrow to an attorney to see, hey, how do we get this done? And it's all we need is just some notarized letter that says they're agreeable to allow this, and that's all we
Okay,
need.
so we can move pretty quickly and go ahead with the dog park.
And then council approval of the donation
Correct.
of that parking lot.
Okay,
That's it.
If I may, just
sure.
in response to what Commissioner Gaspar said, I think we're playing a game of semantics when you talk about a private venture versus a public venture. What I wanted to clear up was the idea that this is not a retail for-profit thing, that it is not around for the public good, okay? If the city wants to build a dog park at the same time as Monett Main Street, then perhaps the city would be willing to say that they will not solicit sponsors so that they are not directly competing. Because I've been running nonprofits for 25 years, and I can tell you that if the city has their project going at the same time as Monett Main Street, people will be deciding from one to which, and it is unfair competition.
That donor reached out to us, not us soliciting.
That's not my point. Is the city council willing to fund it out of Parks and Rec and not solicit donors so that we can do what we were doing?
Yes, I mentioned that dog park was promised as part of a park tax that was passed in April.
Right.
So yes,
But you're saying you're accepting a solicitation, you're accepting a donation.
there was an offer, we haven't
Okay.
received anything, we haven't accepted anything yet. But it's up to that entity, if they so desire to donate to the city for the project. It's unsolicited.
Okay, so you're not gonna solicit?
I have no plans on soliciting, I don't think we have any need to solicit.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, is there a legal aspect of this we need to look at? Or can we just agree that, why don't we delay the park, the dog park and the South Park, so we can get started on this? I mean, this is a great thing downtown. This is, it's not just, you just walk your dogs, you can also walk your dogs inside. There's a cattery in there, there's a place where you can neuter and spay your, take care of the needs of your pets, from that aspect.
I love it, but I'm gonna respectfully decline. I'm gonna say no, the dog park was something that the community has been wanting for many, many, many years. We now have the ability to provide it to them, and I do not wish to delay any further.
Now, as I recall, we were gonna go out and ask the community.
It's
We're
part
gonna
of,
socialize part of, here's our park tax. What are we gonna do with this park tax?
so it was advertised that we were going to upgrade playground equipment, we were going to improve restrooms, we were going to build a dog park. Those things were advertised in the, I'll say, the marketing of the park tax initiative. So in my estimation, we, that city council, went to the voters asking for approval of this park tax so that we could pay for items such as those things. If we don't deliver on that, whether it's delayed or not, if we don't deliver on that, I'm going to take that as us not being very forthcoming and very honest with the patrons. So I'm saying, I don't wish to wait, it's in the budget, it was a promise that we made to the community.
So the
And
the
I'm
dog park
ready.
in South Park is in the budget
Yes.
for this year, is that correct?
I would clarify that we have $45,000 in the budget for the dog park. So I don't anticipate that that necessarily would be enough to entirely fund the creation of a dog park. The $45,000 was intended to be our cost for what originally was planned for the dog park downtown, because we agreed to pay for the construction of all the flat work and the utilities. That we essentially would pay for the sidewalk, the utility work, all of that, which is the majority of the cost associated with the ability to make it happen other than the fence. In terms of the things inside of the fence, if we're gonna have benches, if we're gonna have like an awning of some type, all of that, none of that was included in terms of the budget for that.
It is a very simple area design.
Right.
To start.
Now, granted, the use of the parks tax, I do expect to be able to start having resources allocated towards parks and rec purposes in general later this fall, here probably in 3 to 4 months. So that will start flowing in some revenue that we could utilize for that purpose to go ahead and start, if we want to do flesh out some of those amenities at the dog park, we can certainly do that. But as of right now, there is $45,000 budgeted in the South Park budget, departmental budget for the dog park.
You said tax won't start till October.
Yes, that tax will start in October.
Passed on the ballot in April.
Correct.
All right, so we can move quickly on getting for Main Street is getting started on construction here, or at least remove all the obstacles, correct?
Yes, as soon as we're able to essentially get the land transferred over to Monett Main Street, that would be the last obstacle that at least I'm aware of.
Okay, and the city will not solicit donations for the South Park Dog Park, is that correct?
I would have no intent to solicit those donations, no.
Right. Okay.
And you, Mr. Mayor, you said you talked to the Deloitte's family and they gave us a green light. What was the term you used, if you don't mind?
Amenable.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
No one's talked to him, so I was kind of surprised, but I talked to, Mary Sue Gilloy, Vicky Gilloy, Jack Fox, or Vicky. I can't remember Vicky's last name. But they're amenable to it, so I don't think there's any holdup there, so we can move forward. So Main Street can move forward with that. And, okay, anything else? Okay. All right, next item.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a discussion regarding the expansion of our personal protective equipment employee benefits and policy. This item is a product of our recently established safety committee. We recently established a safety committee here a few months ago with the intent of trying to, city used to have one previously, but restarting this committee, they came up with the idea that they could utilize and it would be beneficial if we provided some footwear for our generally field work employees. And so we're looking at a potential $200 stipend provided by the city for the purchase of boots for public works staff, utility staff, whether they're at the golf course, the airport, work on the trash truck, etc. Basically all of our field staff that would be eligible for these stipends to provide quality footwear that hopefully will last them at least for the year. A lot of our staff go through footwear pretty extensively, and so this would be an opportunity to provide that benefit for them.
So I just have a couple of questions. I see in here that we don't require any proof that they've purchased these boots. So today, I mean, is it an OSHA requirement that they have steel toe boots? Or, is there some liability that the city is carrying because someone may not be wearing the proper footwear?
So we don't fall, the city does not fall under OSHA requirements. As a municipality, we're just regulated by the Missouri Department of Labor. However, while we don't have any strict requirements that we're liable for, if somebody were to get hurt, at the end of the day, we would have a substantial work comp claim on our hands if we do not provide them with quality footwear to prevent them from losing a toe or something along those lines. So we want to try to make sure to provide for our employees as best as possible. It's the expectation that they then would utilize these resources to ensure they have quality footwear.
Okay.
And at the discretion of the supervisor, making sure that, hey, we give you these resources, you make sure you have it. We're gonna require those types of boots, that you have those types of boots for the job.
Yeah, what I like about this is that, the city has an employee advisory committee, and that's where this came from. So now we here at the council are able to get input from the employees on some of the things that they would like. This is one of them. I don't know, $200, we're gonna start there. But it's pretty easy to administer. $200 a year for footwear, I don't know what boots go for, $350, $300. So at least it's a start, and it's also tax-free for the employees. So this is something that I think is good for safety and something good for our employees, so. Let's put this on, we need to vote on this on the next city council meeting.
That would be, yeah, my recommendation would be that if everyone's agreeable to the policy as is, that we place it for action on our agenda for the 11th. If there's further discussion desired, we could have that now or have that at a future work session.
Okay, we're good. Next item.
Would you feel as if it's ready to go forward for vote, or would you prefer to have further discussion?
What I would like to do is when we do the work session, we're not really voting, we're discussing. And we have voted on at the work sessions before, but they have been on time-sensitive issues. I would like this to be mainly discussion and then votes at the regular city council meeting. That's what I'd like to see.
Right, so I'm saying, is this something you would like on our next
Yes.
agenda for the 11th?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, on point of order, I'm not sure you can vote on something like that if you don't set it on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting to have a vote at that occasion. Adjusting the agenda for actual votes in the middle of a meeting, I don't think the Sunshine Law allows that.
What are we doing here?
Well, what you just did is fine. Had you gone forward with a vote right now,
Agreed.
with just so we're clear, that I think the
Yes,
Sunshine Law would give me a problem.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. You're probably right. We have voted at work sessions, but they've always been for time-sensitive issues. Okay.
Okay, but just to finish what Maria is saying is that you may have voted on the agenda, it said that we were going to vote on it. Where this is just a discussion on
Oh,
the,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
so Maria's our new parliamentarian.
Done that before.
All right, next item.
All right, the next item on the agenda is item F, discussion regarding wages of the Public Works Department. This is coming from a previous council work session where we had a discussion regarding wages, increasing wages for both the fire department and the water department. And there was a concern from Director Dunn that the wage increase specifically for the water department would potentially have a negative impact on his crew, that he could end up losing a lot of his crew toward the water department, because that gave them essentially a significant step up compared to his employees. And therefore, there was the request made of Director Dunn, hey, put a plan together for us to look at, the council to look at, and he has done so. So that's what you have in front of you, which we provided in your packets. I will say that Director Dunn put a lot of time and effort into this, and I think he's got a good plan in place here. I will say that from my personal perspective, I think that there are some challenges that go along with this, that specifically the longevity pieces, the 5% at 10 years and 10% for 20 years of service. While I think those are valuable pieces, It's not something that we do at all, in
we
any
do
other
this?
department.
How many slides we got on this?
I believe there might be 5. And so that in particular, I think would be a little bit troublesome, for our, to try and implement that. I think that'll also cause some headaches when it comes to our payroll system, because if we do that, then we're taking people off of our payroll, our pay scale matrix system that we have, because we're getting percentage increases that are completely off that level step matrix. So it will be difficult to implement. I think, again, that there's merit to it, but I think it's probably something that if we're going to implement something on those lines specifically, that would be something that we probably look to do when it comes to the pay compensation study that we're doing overall. I think that there's a lot of merit to having a longevity component, but in my opinion, it should be something that we do systematically citywide rather than it being just departmental based.
I agree, couldn't agree with you more in the departments. We've already seen, we get paid over here and then someone else wants a pay raise to match. It makes sense, because you don't want members of one department going to the other departments. The wage survey is the way to go. What's it gonna cost us to do this?
So I was initially thinking that, we were looking at about 60,000 to 70,000, but upon running the numbers based upon current employees, I believe we're looking at, if we were to implement this without the longevity piece, we'd be looking at about 155,000 annually. So it's a substantial cost increase in wages, because we'd be looking at about a $7,000 raise for 22 people on average.
Is that just base salary?
Just base salary, not
And
overtime,
not
correct, not benefits, etc.
retirement.
So it's a significant increase, and it does have some other complications to it in that.
So if we do implement with that, we implement it now, it costs us 50,000. And it was gonna cost, if we approve the promotion process, that Dave is, recommending here, that's gonna cost us a lot more. Is that what you're saying, the journeyman? But the one where you've got the operator 1, 2, 3, and then the journeyman. Yeah, journey tradesman. See, Dave, this is a new category, journeyman tradesman.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so we're looking at 20+ years experience. I mean, that's what I'm reading here.
Some of them, yes, not all of them.
This paragraph here.
There would be 4 to 5 people that are currently employed that would qualify for this category. I don't have the exact number, but I believe the youngest, as far as experience, would be around 13 years. But they progress all the way up through 26 years that they've been with the city.
Well, I like the retention part. You're taking care of a long-time employees, and with 20 years experience, I think the journeyman tradesman is probably appropriate. So let's go ahead and put this, we'll tee this up for the city council meeting next week for action. This is not in budget, correct?
Correct, it is not. And I will say that while I would agree that we need to do something. That's why we're doing the pay compensation study. You'll look at right now, our public works employees, we have some people starting $2.50, $3 less than what they can make in Pierce City as an entry-level position for public works. When we're competing against a lot smaller communities for entry-level positions, and they're paying quite a bit more than us, it's a challenge. And so we do need to do something. Again, I will say that if we implement this as is, it's going to cause some substantial problems. You guys just approved a plan for the water department that I think if we approve this, there's a good chance that Director Schaller may be back in front of you saying, hey, now Dave's gonna be stealing my guys. Because this places some of Dave's people at the entry level above where Skip's entry level people are. And so it'll just be a conversation that we're gonna have to continue to have. So we can certainly move on it if you want.
What's the solution here?
So I would say the solution is we probably need to sit down and have a more in-depth conversation regarding this. I think it's certainly something that we need to take action on, that we need to move on because we want to keep our people, because we're losing good people, people that have been here for years. But in the same hand, I don't think it's quite as easy as just saying, hey, this is going to fix everything. It may address Director Gunn's issues, but I think then it does cause issues elsewhere, which is really showcases the need for the overall compensation study.
Well, again, that's the point I wanted to make. I'm not so concerned about causing issues in other departments, even though that is a concern. I think it's a two-pronged approach. I think it's a short-term solution to get the team where they possibly should be, a little bit more market-based. Second phase of that would go hand in hand with the job compensation and position compensation study that we want to do. Because I do also like a lot of this, if not all of this approach, and I would like to see if it fits in other departments. I think this needs to be a major input into that position analysis that we want to do. But I'm looking for a complete approach, a complete solution for all of our city employees. And it needs to be, I'll say it needs to be purposeful and also budgeted. That's the main thing. But I don't know if you guys agree that a short-term solution should also be considered, maybe something that we could consider this fiscal year.
Right. I think that
Now, I want to take some time to absorb this and kind of look what we did with some of the other departments. We may put this on the agenda for next. I think let's put it on there. I think short term, we certainly need to do that. Let's focus on that for the next city council meeting. That way we can get stable there, and Dave will come over and you can explain all this stuff to me because I don't quite get it all yet. All right, anything else on Public Works pay raise? All right, next item.
All right, the next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the city's summer job program for students. I just wanted to just give a brief update that we have instituted a summer job program, just working with students. It's a program that's provided with our local schools as well as the state of Missouri. We have 5 students working for the city, one in Boca Department, one in Golf, one South Park, one North Park, and one Cemetery. The program lasted just 2 weeks. We were hoping to get it started at the beginning of June, but unfortunately it didn't get started quite as soon as we would like, but we are trying to get that in place again for July. It's a highly successful program that we're hoping we can continue on and utilize next year as well. It's a good opportunity to utilize some local youth, some local students to help us out, and at the same time, it is at no cost to the city of Monett or our taxpayers. The state of Missouri actually, through a workforce program, is paying the wages of these individuals. It gives us an opportunity to maybe try some people out in different fields and maybe see if it might be something that works for them and for us in the long run, that they decide they want to work for the city of Monett once they graduate. So certainly a good opportunity, a good program that we're excited to have and utilize, and look forward to continue to use it hopefully this month as well as next year.
How many we got in the program?
5 students total. Hopefully next year we'll end up with some more. We thought we might end up with somewhere close, over 10.
Yeah, I thought the number was closer to 14.
Right.
Yeah, that was the amount that the Missouri Job Fund or something like that. Something to that effect. But those dollars are available only in a certain period of time, and only for certain youth. That it's I'll say income based. So only youth that qualify for this program can participate.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion regarding the disposal of grass in city streets. This is something that was brought up as an issue. Had some complaints about grass being disposed of or blown into the street, just left in the street. And so this was something that I've had in previous cities I've worked for, and the ordinance prohibiting that. We don't currently have an ordinance that prohibits people disposing of their grass or leaving their grass in the streets. I don't have anything on this. Sorry, but there, I believe you have a.
That was a separate.
I think we sent you a. some potential language that Director Dunn has came up with using the City of Creve Coeurs. I'm not sure I pronounced the name, but. Crevecoeur, French. But their ordinance, I think that it works well for us, basically saying that no person, whether owner, lessee, occupant, or contractor, shall allow or permit debris of any kind, including grass, weeds, etc.
Just,
They can't blow it in the street.
what's the big issue?
People leave.
You told us what, but why do we want to do this?
So the thought process would be that when you blow or leave grass, leaves, etc. in the street, it can cause multiple problems. It gets into our stormwater system, gets things clogged up in the stormwater system, so where then stormwater doesn't flow properly, and then you can have floods, essentially. It as well can cause issues with traffic flow, especially for motorcycles. If you're trying to drive your motorcycle and you end up taking a patch of mowed grass, it can be dangerous. In addition to that, we do safety issue. We do a tremendous job. Dave and his crew do an absolutely tremendous job of maintaining our city streets. We have a crack seal program. We have
Dave, how can you tell me how this affects you? What kind of problems that this would eliminate?
The biggest part is the issues that we have with the storm drains. There's just a huge prevalence of people that take grass trimmings and stuff, and they purposely put them there because they put them there and then it rains and then it's gone. But, you know what I mean? It's impacting the total system, down and there's the unsightly part of it too. These contractors that are getting paid to do these mowing jobs around town, I really think, hey, that should be part of it. You know what I mean? Don't blow it out in the street and then make it look like we don't run a street sweeper. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're investing a lot of time and labor and stuff into cleaning these up when it's technically shouldn't be our responsibility to take care of that stuff. And there's a lot of times we get phone calls from the same people that say, my whistle's plugged up, but I'm the one that stacked all the brush and yard trimmings there. I don't get that part.
What's the volume of complaints that we get on this? This is ordered, so.
I haven't had a tremendous number of complaints, but I do know that it is an issue. And so just something I was bringing to your attention on, if something you wanted to take action on. I do know that, especially on heavily traveled roads, that is more of an issue. Full disclosure, it's something I used to do as a kid. I just blow it out in the street. It's easier than mowing inside and clogging up your mower. But then when you realize the issue that it has on our stormwater system, on our streets, etc., I think it's the right thing to do. And as I was saying, our crews do a terrific job on maintaining our streets, so it's not as big of an issue with our streets. But when you allow the clippings to be blown into the streets, if we don't get to sealing whatever cracks are there fairly quickly, the debris gets down into the crack that's in the streets, and you'll end up having growth from weeds, vegetation that grows in there. The roots end up going through your base in your streets and going through your asphalt, and you wind up your roads deteriorate much, much faster if we allow the grass, etc., to be just in the streets.
So what we're looking at is an ordinance, correct?
Correct.
What we're looking at is an ordinance. And then how about enforcement?
I would say we certainly would probably I'd say at least 6 months, probably a year, we go through an education campaign, just saying, hey, we don't allow this any longer. Please make sure you don't do this. It'd be something that code enforcement would really handle. As you are well aware, our building and codes office right now is short-staffed, so that'd be a challenge for us until we get fully staffed. But the thought process would be that we have an education campaign, because this is a new thing. I don't want to write people tickets right off the bat, but I think it's something that would, in the long run, be in the best interest of the community.
Yeah, and this falls in line with our current ordinance, the nuisance ordinance. So 225, chapter 225, and would just be contained therein, right? It'd be in addition to that existing chapter. I like this. I wish we had this longer ago. It's not just grass, right? So it lists in your back in the document. It has a number of items, but it really specifically talks about people
placing or mechanically blowing, sweeping, or throwing into any street. So it's very specific, which I like, and it's also limited to just, I'll say vegetation. It's not including litter, which I know we already have. So.
All right, let's go ahead and tee up this for an ordinance at the next city council meeting.
I'd like to ask Dave a question, if I may. You pick up, if I may, you pick up leaves, you pick up tree branches and stuff periodically throughout the course of the year. Is there a possibility that the clippings could be part of the pickup? Even if they bag them and you brought it back to?
We do, it just requires them bagging them and then calling City Hall, they fill out a work order, we usually get them within 2 days.
They can bag and put them on the porch, make a phone call.
Not on the porch.
Curb. Curbing.
We don't
It all
do the porch.
depends where the house is at.
We call it PD.
But they can bag and call,
Yes.
and they will be picked up.
Yes.
Thank you.
The only thing that I would recommend that we modify from the language that Director Dunn had provided was that we remove the restriction on placing the debris in the right-of-way. And that'd be my recommendation. That way we do have right-of-way that extends out into people's yards a little bit, and we want to make sure that they can put that, whether it's brush, whether it's the clippings, et cetera, up against the curb, right there in the, against the street, right, so that we don't have to go into their yard to grab whatever brush it is. It's just up against the street, but it's not in the street causing issues.
Good idea.
Right, anything else?
No.
All right, next time.
All right, the next item is item I, discussion regarding an update on our power purchasing plan. The city of Monett purchases our electricity wholesale and then resells. And so we're in the process of trying to secure our supply for the next few years. And we've got the majority of that locked up, but we were looking at a couple different options for the remainder of our supply in that portfolio. I don't have a whole lot new to add, but Commissioner Gaspar had a request, he just wanted an update on it. The city is currently looking at working with the city of Springfield on potentially.
Skip, this is the new plant they're gonna put in Springfield.
Yeah, the McCartney plant, it's over on the Stratford side of things. I think it's a 50 megawatt project. There's an opportunity there to get a purchase power agreement for maybe 5 to 10 years. We're also looking at probably for a couple of years. Right now, our slice is all Liberty, and going forward, I think we're going to have 25 megawatts from them for a couple of years, and then probably we will not be able to get any more from them. There's been capacity constraints due to Southwest Power Pool saying you have to have so much excess capacity, and that's hitting Liberty as well. So there's not as much excess capacity that they have to sell to us at this point. So we're filling that gap with one of our sister pools, the Monett pool, which is kind of central Missouri. They've got some excess that they're going to sell for a couple of years. And then they've got a project up in Marshall right now that they're looking at, they're doing studies on. And I think that one will be 2 35 megawatt units. And there'll be some opportunity there for us probably 2028. And then 2030 and kind of maybe beyond, Sykeston, they've got a coal plant down there that's kind of reaching in and out. They're going to be looking at doing something there, and we feel, MQA feels like that's a pretty good opportunity there to probably do kind of like with Springfield, either do a purchase power agreement or own some.
So what we're seeking here is all these different options to lower utility bills.
Yeah,
correct.
That and to firm up our capacity, because we're required to have, I think our pool is required to have in a ballpark of 70 megawatts. And so we're hustling now to try to make sure we have our capacity.
If we get the Springfield plant compared to Plum Point, which is over by Sykes in eastern Missouri,
Arkansas.
Yes.
Arkansas, so that will reduce the transmission costs if we can do a plant.
Yeah, because that's in another transmission zone, so we have to wheel it to get it out, and we pay fees to bring it out of the MISO area into Southwest Power Pool. And Of course, we are still, we're kind of waiting on some grant money, but we are still looking at potential solar projects as well.
That's what I was gonna ask, thank you.
And
Still waiting on that.
Yes, waiting on
Grant
that.
application.
And then I know talking with Steve Stodden up there today, a little bit when I was in Columbia, that some of the battery storage is, there's some grant offerings there, it's gotten cheaper. That might even be a possibility down the road. I mean, we wouldn't have to have like a big battery field, but we could probably have something that could hold a few megawatts and get credit for the capacity.
It's in those containers, right? Like a
Yes.
trucking container.
Well, yeah, similar to that, right, yeah, right.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
I would,
I have a question though. Thank you, Skip.
I would like to clarify just real quick as far as lowering electric costs. While there are some opportunities hopefully to save on some areas, whether it's transmission, whatnot, and electric costs, if we're able to get some of these things to come to fruition, especially if we get a big solar grant, et cetera, there is a potential there that we could wind up with some lower electric costs. But the main objective here is to stabilize and to secure the long-term energy future of the city of Monett at a good price. The energy market is such that I expect, and the market projections are that the cost of electricity is going to continue to go up at a very high rate. We're looking at the cost of capacity going up substantially here in the next few years and in the future. And so our goal is to really try and stabilize and lock in good prices for the future, because even if they may be a little bit higher than we'd like them to be right now, if we can lock in decent prices, 10 years from now, we're going to be a fraction of the cost of a lot of our competitors in the area. So that's the concern, is that if we don't do something, if we don't get a good opportunity here and lock in something in the near future, that we could wind up having to buy off the market or get into contracts down the road that wind up hurting us substantially, because capacity costs are really going to just continue to rise.
So it sounds like a diversified portfolio for the future.
Yeah, that was getting
Very
ready to
much
say,
so.
we are getting more diversified. Our contract now, the slice that we got from Liberty is really heavy on Plum Point, almost 80% of it. So when Plum Point's producing and it's getting called into the market, the pricing's good, we do well. But when it's not, we get punished pretty good. You know, a lot of what we're looking at with these projects are gonna be natural gas, and right now gas is cheap, but I mean, there's still some chances we can get punished with that, because, you know, gas prices can go outside, so it is a market.
All right, next item on the agenda is J, discussion regarding the Clark Center Resource Center. I had a request from the CEO of the Clark Center, Brad Reitenauer. I just wanted to give the city council a tour of the newly renovated resource center, the Clark Center Resource Center, which was the old Cox Hospital. And so wanting to get with you three and see when there might be an opportunity for you to get together and be able to have a tour from Mr. Reitenauer. Also some other conversations about what he'd potentially like to do in the future with regard to some of their future plans. And so we'll just like to be able to have some conversations and give you the opportunity to have that tour. So I didn't know when you might have some availability for that.
Are there any thoughts of dates?
I was thinking probably toward the end of this month or the beginning of August, if you had any availability, if we plan that far out.
Yeah, just give us some dates, we can respond to you and figure that out. That'll be a public meeting.
Is this only pertaining to just the resource center at the hospital only?
So there's also related to their future plans and opportunities that the Clark Center may have, but we'll discuss that further. I think he wants to kind of outline his goals and plans to the three of you.
To avoid what the mayor was just saying about it having to be a public meeting if we all attend, can we see if Brad would be amenable to individual tours? Because that would actually probably line up with all of our calendars better anyway.
I can certainly request that and see if he'd have any opportunity to give a few separate tours. Obviously, that'd be more time consuming for him, but let's see if we can make that work.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Okay. Anything else on that?
No, all right, thank you.
All right, next item.
The next item is just the, apologize, I believe you would ask for these to be at a regular meeting, so we can table this if you'd like, the financial.
So is this May we're looking at right now?
Correct.
Okay, just say, the economic development, $725,000, what's in that for this year? What kind of things are we doing with the economic development?
So that is for the $650,000 that I was referencing for Lowe's Lane. That's included in that, which is obviously the majority of that. The other component to that is where we pay for the $25,000 that the city gives to Monett Main Street every year. That comes out of that amount, as well as does the $50,000 that we have budgeted for our economic development consultant, Steve Etcher, and any other projects, economic development based that we may do. So for instance, the blight study, that $15,000 for the blight study came out of that.
Because we partnered with the hotel feasibility study also, right?
Correct.
The chamber.
Correct. So I did go ahead and I believe you all should have seen this afternoon as well. I sent you the hotel feasibility study that has just been completed. And so hopefully we'll have a chance to review that over the next few days. I think that's incredibly exciting for the community. I think the data and the information within it are definitely good news for the community, and so hopefully we're able to leverage that document to be able to get some hotel developers to decide they want to come build a quality hotel here in Monett. But that study was, our share of that was 45%. The chamber picked up 55% of that, so see Director Heeman in the audience today, and we certainly appreciate the chamber's willingness to assist on that. And we did pay for our share, our 45% of that in last year's fiscal budget, so that did not hit this year's fiscal.
Yes. Thank you. Scroll to the other pages. Yeah, go ahead.
So the charts, I just try and outline how we're doing them from a trend basis. You can see, with only a couple months through the year, there's not a whole lot of volatility there, but you can see really the one at the bottom of the screen there, fund balances by year. You can see that over the course of the past 7 years, 6 years approximately, the city's done relatively well when it comes to building up our reserve balances and all these major operating funds. We have started to tick down a little bit on the water and sewer. That's because we have some substantial water and sewer projects that we're doing, and especially on the sewer side, and we're going to continue to see that tick down this year. As you can tell, over the past few years, we've been saving up, and so now we're spending down a lot of those reserves. We're going to be taking out a significant loan because even though we built up those reserves, we don't have enough there to cover the cost of the sewer project.
It just took a long time to get it to that point.
Well, that's where I've got reserve levels there. You'll see that we're sitting fairly good on reserves. The electric fund is really the big one that concerns me because it's sitting, at $3.5 million is what I project to end the year. When really we should be at $11 million for reserves. So we're quite a bit below what would be recommended or ideal. In the event we have a major storm, ice storm, tornado, whatnot, come through the community, take down a good chunk of the community's power lines, that $3.5 million is not enough to get us by. So we're going to have to take out substantial loans to be able to cover the cost for the electric funds.
What kind of figures are we talking about? How much?
It depends on what type of storm we get and how much damage is done. But
I think there's been talk. Skip, maybe you gave me a figure when I first came in about our reserves we need for utilities. Whatever you look at.
Yeah, it needs to be, his 11 million is fine, but we need to be above $6-7 million anyway.
Okay.
Because Winter Storm Uri
I mean, our normal bill for a month here is, in February is 1.2 million, it was over $6 million for that month. So here we are with a 5-year payoff, and citizens are having to pay that. I mean, it's just gonna take that long to pay it off.
I know I've referenced this every year in my annual budget document that I produce for the council and for the community, but the fact that this community does not levy a property tax, the city does not levy property tax, is detrimental to our ability to weather any type of major economic crisis. In the event that we have a recession, that has the substantial impact on our community that's much bigger than what a lot of communities has, because most communities have 3 sources of funding. You've got utilities, you've got property tax, you've got sales tax. With not having property tax is the most stable form of revenue. If people lose their jobs, if Tyson or Schreiber or anybody else closes down a shift because they can't find they can't sell the product, we end up with a loss in utility revenue, which means that we don't get those resources, and you wind up with a loss in sales tax revenue.
How long have we not had property tax?
It's 1999, I believe.
That's pretty accurate. 97, 99, yeah.
So we've been lucky in that we haven't had any major issues, but as Skip referenced with Winter Storm Uri, our reserves were not sufficient. You look at the city of Mount Vernon, who's also in our power pool, they paid that bill just outright because they had the reserves. We could not, and so we took a loan. I honestly recommend that, or would have recommended had I been here at the time, that we took the loan anyways, because it's a 0 interest loan, so I think that's a good use of resources. But at the same time, the fact that we don't have the reserves, if something were to happen in our community from an economic perspective or a storm perspective, we would struggle with the ability to weather whatever that may look like. If it's a 4 or 5 year recession, our utility is not well positioned to deal with that.
The only alternative is to borrow money, you said loans, to bring that number up. Is there?
No, I mean, we could certainly lay off staff. We could raise rates. We could cut costs elsewhere instead of replacing equipment as needed. We could defer that. So there would be other options that we could look at. But certainly we run our operation very well today. It's a well-maintained utility department within all of our utilities, but we do have needs that we need to address, and we're doing that in all these areas. But on the electric funds especially, we've got no debt, which is very unusual. Most communities, other than the Uri debt, the winter storm debt, which most utilities do have debt, and so that is something that most of the excess resources that we have from the electric utility go to fund general operations. We fund the general operations with a 10% pilot, and then on top of that, we transfer an extra $800,000 into the general fund to subsidize general operations, to support our parks, our police department, our fire department, etc. And so that number is high compared to a lot of other communities. On the same hand, we do that because we don't have property taxes.
Yeah, and I was just going to add that pilot is an acronym for payment in lieu of taxes.
Correct.
The slide that's on the screen right now, I want to commend Mr. Weiner. He arrived in 2021, and you'll see that our cash reserves has increased nearly 50% since his arrival. He's done that through careful budgeting and also wise investing of the city's money to a level that we had not before. We were investing, just not quite to the same level. So thank you, Mr. Weiner.
Thank you, sir.
This is in essence more of the same.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just showing month to month, and really the important one is cash flow. To look at the bottom one there, just to see what we're looking at. And 2 months doesn't really paint a great picture, but over the course of time, you're able to see what an average year looks like. And I think this is, from a trend perspective, this is more important to look at, showing, again, that revenue and expenses are valid information, but at the bottom is the cash flow, which I think is really more relevant when you look at how do we compare to previous years, making sure that we're on a good trend. So I think overall, you look at the yellow, which is current fiscal, and you see through 2 months of the year, overall, we're doing fairly well when it comes to looking at how we compare to prior years.
That's the last slide.
So that's the last discussion item on the agenda, other than any other pertinent issues of the city. I don't have anything else in particular to discuss. So does the council have anything else they would like to bring up?
If I may, I have two generous offers on land within the city by two different individuals. As a donation, I've talked to Mr. Winter about it, a few department heads involved in it. Haven't made the council aware of it yet.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Okay. We might need to save that for closed session.
Yeah, that's probably.
So, anytime we talk about real estate, legal, or personnel issues, at a minimum, that has to be in closed session.
Okay.
So, sorry.
Yes,
Which is very soon.
Yes, out there.
Which is very soon.
Okay, all right, anything else?
I just have something really, really quick. I was just looking at my inbox and I saw an email from Chief Dowd that there was a very nice win by the Monett Police Department. There were a couple of suspects apprehended that were involved in some auto thefts and auto issues. So great job, Chief Dowd. I know he's there somewhere. So thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming. We've kind of found our home here is in this building for our city council meetings. They'll always be in the evening, and did we get a videotape of this one? Okay, so it'll be videotaped, and this will be the standard for how we do things, even for working meetings and for the regular meetings. So I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I move to adjourn.
So no, I move that we convene into closed session pursuant to section 610.21 of the Missouri statutes.
Roll call.
Mayor Randy Burke,
Yes.
Commissioner Indovina,
Yes.
Commissioner King Gaspar.
Aye.
All right, thanks for coming.
Point of order, who was the second that?
I second.
Thank you.
Yeah.